Session of the April 11th Nelson County Board of Supervisors. And first item on the agenda is public comments. And these are comments not related to the public hearing that we're having this evening. No one is signed up for public comments on non-agenda items, but if there is anybody that wants to speak on something other than the public hearing topic. Anybody? Nope. All right, well, I will close the public comment section and move straight into the public hearing on the real estate tax rate. A couple of guidelines on the hearing. You will have 3 minutes per person to speak, 5 minutes if you're speaking on behalf of a group. 1 member per group will be allowed to speak, and if you could, announce the name of the group when you come up to speak. If you're an individual, please give your name and address for the record before your time starts. Please be respectful with your comments and with the time of everybody else in the room. And Mr. Reed will be the timekeeper. He will let you know if you have 30 seconds and when your time is up. And that'll also be followed by a tap of the gavel. So, although I don't think, we don't have too many people signed up to speak tonight, so we'll go ahead and get started on that. First up we have is Michael Hebner.
Yes. Michael Hebner, 11468 Owl Road, Auburn, Virginia. Good evening. I'm standing here opposed to the tax increase of the real estate in a day and age where we go to the grocery store and it's 25% to 50% more expensive to live. It doesn't make sense. And for roughly $320,000 net gain with the budget where it is, even though it's, Mr. Reed had said it was a tight budget, but it's balanced. And we don't know yet what the governor's going to put in with the school, but if you guys have it within your power, not only to keep the rate the same, but maybe tonight to look to give Nelson County homeowners a break and maybe lower the tax rate if that's an option. But again, I stand here opposed to that. There are several others that could not be here today, but they are standing in opposition as well with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So I put the cart before the horse and jumped on the agenda. Before we go into the public hearing, the county administrator would like to give a presentation. Well, it says public hearing, and then
Do I get the topic yet?
that would be a no.
I have more to say.
Okay, as Chair Parr said, we're here for the public hearing on the proposed increase in real property tax rate, which affects both real estate and mobile homes. Pursuant to State Code 58.1, 3001, and 58.1, 3007, the Board of Supervisors authorized the public hearing tonight on the proposed property tax increase at their March 22nd, 2024 budget work session. Public hearing notice was published in the April 4th, 2024 edition of the Nelson County Times, providing the 7 days notice required by State Code 58.1, 3007. This is a copy of the advertised public hearing notice. It shows a current rate of year 2023 of 65 cents, and that's per $100 of value. Proposed rate is 66 cents for 2024 tax year, and that's also per $100 of value. And this 1 cent increase is anticipated to generate approximately $321,707 in revenue. Some tax levy examples at the proposed rate increase are shown as follows. For an assessed value property at $50,000, the annual dollar increase is expected to be $5. For a property valued at $150,000, the annual dollar increase would be $15. For $300,000 property, it would be $30, an annual increase. For a $500,000 property, it would be $50 in annual increase, and then the last one is $1 million property would have an annual increase of $100. Next steps would be to conduct a public hearing and receive citizen input on the proposed tax rate increase. Again, this would affect real estate and mobile homes. Obtain any input from staff if desired. Actions that you could consider would be to defer action to a future meeting date prior to our Commissioner of Revenue's deadline of April 30th. You could consider action to approve or disapprove the tax increase to 66 cents by motion, second, and vote. And then if any action is taken, we would ask that the board approve Resolution 2024-32, which would establish all of the 2024 year tax rates. This would be inclusive of the improved real property tax and mobile home tax rates of either 65 cents or 66 cents, the tangible personal property rate of $2.79 per $100, and machinery and tools tax of $1.25 per $100. This is the example resolution. We would fill in whatever real property tax was authorized this evening if the board chose to do that tonight. And that's all I have.
Very good.
Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. McGarry? I apologize. Thank you. Now, we will circle back to the public hearing comments. Second on the list is Carlton Ballou.
Good evening. Carlton Ballou, 1 Mosby Lane, Fall River, Virginia. It probably won't surprise you that I'm opposed to a tax increase at this time, because I'd be opposed to a tax increase most any time. This time in particular, because I don't really believe that it's necessary. The county has options, much better options, it would seem to me. The county has a substantial reserve that it can dip into to get it through a temporary cash flow crunch. We're only a year or so away from another assessment. I would expect real estate values to go up between 20 and 30% over a 4-year period, knowing the construction industry the way I do. So the county is in for a significant windfall without changing the rate within the next couple of years. And surely it has enough reserve to get through for the next couple of years. And of course, unlike most Nelson residents don't have a substantial reserve that they can dip into, but the county does. And so I hope that they will consider other options before they adopt a tax increase. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel, is it Ricker? Yeah, Ricker.
Daniel Rickard, 8301 Thomas Nelson Highway. You know, $10 isn't that much per 100,000. So if you have a $100,000 house, $10 a year extra, it's not that much. $200,000 house, $20 extra a year, that's not that bad, right? In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't seem like a lot, but I'm here to suggest that it is. Anytime a governing body is proposing an increase in taxes, which is forcibly taking money from its citizens, essentially, it should be done with great sobriety and calculation. After reading through the transcript of the last meeting where the increase was proposed and searching for additional explanation and content, I couldn't find a specific designation for the additional funds. And when I say specific, I don't just mean, well, we're a little tight, there's a little bit of a decrease in our school budget. You know, it would be nice to have another $300,000 in the budget. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a specific intention for this extra finances. And the reason being is that $10, that $20 extra a year, that $30 extra a year, it never goes away. That government never decreases taxes typically, history would suggest. They only increase. And I would suggest that anytime a governing body is to increase taxes, it should be done with great calculation. And there should be a great specific intent for that increase. You know, a comment was made that the county's budget is tight, and I say good. I'm glad the county's budget is tight. That's because that means my tax dollars aren't being wasted. Anytime there's a surplus in a governing body, that should be returned back to its citizens. You know, we're about, like the last gentleman just said, we're about to be reassessed. And I don't know about y'all, but inflation is still pretty high, which means the price of houses are still going up and still going up by 6%, by 7%. Shoot, in this county, they're going up by 10, 15, 20%, which means that when they are reassessed in a year or 2 years or whenever it was, I think it's coming up pretty soon, that revenue is going to come back to the county. We're in a tight budget. That's phenomenal. We should be in a tight budget. And in a couple of years, we're going to be in a less tight budget because the revenue in this county is going to increase. If you were to come to me and you say, Daniel, that $10, that $20, that's going to go to this specific thing. We want to add 10 more police officers. You know, you could probably get me on board with that. I'd probably come in here and support something like that. But when you say our budget's tight and we just want to throw some more money at the school but don't necessarily have, hey, this is specifically what it's going to, I'm very wary of that. I'm very wary of that. And if you could tell us, specifically, this is where this is going towards, and maybe make a decision that way, I would appreciate that specifically. But just the idea of extra $300,000 going into the government's pocket, and hopefully it's going to go towards a school and to something good, it's not enough for me. And I would encourage you and I respectfully ask that you would consider this, and you would consider maybe being a little bit more transparent exactly where this is going. I may have missed it, but I would really like to know, where is that extra penny? Where is that extra $10, $20 that you're going to be taking out of my pocket going to? Where specifically is it going to? And I think that's what everybody here would really like to know, and would really like to encourage you to not raise the taxes. To not raise our taxes unnecessarily, unless there is a specific reason. Like I said, you want to give some money to the cops. You want to do something specifically good in the county that is going to go on for perpetuity, that $10 or $20 is going to go to. You might be able to win a lot of us on board. But just saying we're going to throw some money at a school or here or there because, it's a little tight, I don't think that's good enough. So I respectfully ask that you do not raise the taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have Steve Peglow. Did I say that right? Steve? Thank you.
I signed the wrong thing. I really hadn't planned to say anything about that.
Okay, well,
That was wonderful. That was wonderful, thank you.
state your name and your address, please.
Steve Peglow, as he said, my address is 1798 Monacan Drive in Nellysford. So in the about 15 years that we've been here, we've seen our taxes go up significantly, as we've had this conversation before. From the combination of assessments and then tax rates, as you said, it doesn't seem like a lot, a penny here, a penny there, but it does add up over time. And there's a lot of pressure on people, especially people that are retiring. You don't have the money that you thought you might have. So we're getting hit on many fronts, and I also would oppose this tax increase for some of the reasons he suggested, and also this kind of ratcheting effect that we're seeing. So, thank you.
Next, we have Haywood Greenberg.
Hi, I'm Haywood Greenberg. Most people call me Woody. 377 Cabell Mountain Lane, Harrington. I've been told that there has been a change in the composite index that governs how much money the state gives to the counties and cities to fund our public education system, and that we are expecting to receive more than $1 million less from the state. I can't believe that an extra $1 a month on a $500,000 house, less than that on a $200,000 house, is really going to impact anyone all that badly. It seems to me that anything we can do to compensate for that loss of money, the loss of state funding, would be very desirable for our school system. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Paul Davis.
Davis, 2514 Rockfish Valley Highway, Nelly's Ford. I'd just like to say, right before I came down tonight, I was watching the news, and out of Roanoke, they have a story on there about just the groceries for families. This is costing $227 more each month than from 1 year ago. I'm opposed to the tax increase at this time for several reasons. One, we have a national election coming up. We don't know what the economy is going to look like next year at this time. That could put maybe some who are opposed in favor of a tax, how the economy is going. There's also talk of reassessment, rezoning, which could have impact on people's property values quickly. And if you're raising it up, it doesn't sound like much, a penny, but suddenly you go from agriculture and you're zoned residential, it could have a huge impact with a new assessment. The other thing is, most of the time, it's everywhere else, the one who absorbs any increase from the government is the homeowner or landowner. Businesses or landlords just pass that right on off to the renter or to customers. But those who don't rent or own businesses, such as I have to absorb that. And as one gentleman just said, once you go up in taxes, I've never seen people most times come back down. And so there's going to be a trend to continue to go up. And I would say, especially in this, we have a national election year. None of us knows what it's going to look like for the next year's budget. Money could be better, the economy could be better. No one knows at this point. I would ask to, I'm opposed of it, and I would ask to hold off for the next year and start over again with the national election and see how the results and what the economy is doing for everybody. But keep in mind, many of you here, I've all heard about affordable housing. Renters right now in this county are struggling now. Any increase, you're going to have landlords pass that right on to the renters now who are struggling right now. I don't know how they're even making it. So just keep that in mind, that you're hurting the people who live in their homes and don't have a business or rental income. They're just forced to pay this. Landlords and business, you just pass it off to the next person. Thank you.
Jerry Lloyd.
Hi, I'm Jerry Lloyd. I live at 9322 Rockfish Valley Highway. Most of you all know me because I come and speak quite a bit, but tonight you're going to get some more information about me that you didn't know. For well over 10 years, I was on the Loudoun County Credit Union Supervisory Committee, which meant I audited the credit union on a quarterly cycle. And Loudoun County, if you know anything about it, it's a pretty big county. So we're talking several $1 billion that I had to help audit, which was awesome. We had armed guards and everything. It was fun. Currently, I am on the financial committee for the National Dance Society, meaning I continue to handle large sums of money. National Dance Society is not just a national organization, it's also international. So once again, I deal with quite a bit of money with the Finance Committee. That being said, the CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index, and the ECB, which is the European Central Bank, at the moment, they are keeping their interest rates the same. They may consider dropping them, but they're not going to increase them. Why not? Because if they increase them, it's going to lead to a possible recession. And European Bank is connected with our bank, which means if the ECBI increases, then we're going to kind of have to follow along because international banking kind of goes hand in hand. But the flip side of that is it funnels down to counties, which means if they're raising their prices, things are going to hit Nelson County. Currently, banks are seeing an increase in delinquencies in credit card payments because already prices, the Consumer Price Index, the CPI, is really up there. And they're seeing delinquencies in loan payments. They're seeing delinquencies in mortgage payments because things are going up. AEP, Appalachian Electric Power Company, Dominion, and SEVA are raising their rates, SEVA specifically, 4% as of June 1st. That's not a small bill. On average, our bill is between $200 and $300 a month, year round. 4% on 300 is going to be quite a bit. Our county at the moment is solvent. Even if the school board budget is fully funded, and I hope you do fully fund it. The county is fully solvent and has money in the budget for catastrophic emergencies. $321,707 is not going to impact much. And there's nothing that says what that money is for.
Thank you, Jerry.
You're
We
welcome.
appreciate your time. Jeremy or Sarah Sumner?
So I actually did not know that I signed up to speak.
Okay. Well, you don't have to, but you're welcome to.
But,
State your name and address.
Or you might,
Oh, sorry.
there you go.
I don't do public speaking. My name is Sarah Sumner. My address is 89 Laurel Hill Lane in Faubourg. I stand with everybody else tonight, especially as a young person who is trying to make a living in this life. I went to school for a 4-year degree, and all I get is a 3% increase in my pay. And I moved out here 3 years ago from actually South Carolina, and I love it here, but noticing year after year, my mortgage is going up, property taxes are going up, and grocery stores are going up. How can somebody like me keep affording this kind of life? And I oppose, like, our school system looks beautiful, it's more beautiful than I ever went to school. How can somebody like me continue to even have a child in this life? Because I can barely afford to go to the grocery store, barely can afford to get a new car. It's sad. And I oppose, do not raise this. I think we should actually lower it. But that's all I have.
Thank you. And last, we have Stephen Bain.
Stephen Bain, 620 Farnham Climb, Nelliesford, Virginia. Increasing the real estate rate is wrong for Nelson County. Nelson County must live within its means, just as all of its constituents must. Number one, inflation is hurting residents. Nelson County residents, your constituents, are hurting with unfortunate inflation for groceries, gas, and housing costs totaling 20 to 30% over the past 3 years. It is important for your constituents to know that you have their backs with no increase to their tax burden. Number two, Nelson County budget. I've been reviewing the details of the county's budget, which is in progress. From such review, there is no reason for an increase in the real estate tax rate. Note that I will provide more feedback regarding potential savings to that budget. Number three, Nelson County Public Schools budget. I've also been reviewing the details of the proposed budget from the county public schools. From such review, there is also no reason for an increase in the real estate tax rate. Note that I've been reviewing the efficiency of the school system, and I'll provide more feedback regarding the opportunities for improved efficiency and savings. The school system must also live within its means, and the county must hold it accountable and not write a blank check to the schools. In summary, Nelson County, including the public schools, must live within its means, as we all must. Your constituents are hurting with inflationary cost of living, and it is important that they know that you have their backs with no increase to their tax burden. Other counties are decreasing their tax rate, while Nelson County is considering a tax rate increase. Increasing the real estate tax rate is wrong for Nelson County.
All right. That concludes the public hearing. And now we have establishment of the 2024 tax rates are 2024-32.
Mr. Chairman, as I sit here today, I was opposed in consideration of this tax increase. I am still opposed in consideration of this tax increase. When prepared, I'm ready to go back to my original motion to leave it at last year's rate.
I have a few things I'd like to say before we progress. First of all, I want to say thank you, Chairman Parr and Mr. Rutherford, for getting people fired up. I'm happy people are here. This is actually attendance I would like at every meeting. But finally, people are worried about the things that I've been stomping my feet about for the last year. Secondly, I would like to apologize for those of you that felt I lost my way with my vote previously. But those of you that know me, the reasons I ran were fiscal responsibility, protecting the future of our citizens, young and elderly, and then the cost of the capital projects proposed prior to me coming here. I've had considerable education in finance, and never would I have imagined the proposal for a tax increase before we finished working on the entire budget. That being said, I've collected a decent amount of information since that vote, and there's a couple things that you all need to know that I'm concerned about. The debt service that's been proposed to be taken for only 2 capital projects worries me. Admittedly, the $35 million to $75 million debt service does work on paper. However, I am troubled by what seems to be short-sightedness of the board as a whole. There are many things facing this county. This is a very short list. We have county employees being recruited by other localities, so a jump in payroll is possible. A decrease in volunteerism. So if we have paid firefighters, that's another increase in payroll. Growing staff on the emergency services, we are outgrowing the room we have in the courthouse. Water impoundment would draw business and create jobs for our county. Building inspection office, Livingston Fire Department are both in disrepair and will not be cheap to replace. I could go on and on. It is my hope to inspire you to talk with your supervisors about the excessive costs of one office. I ask that you remind them that social services has needs and wants, and it is up to the board to choose or build a facility that enables them to serve our community, and that is it. Spending excessive money will tie the hands of the board in progressing with projects that have a return on investment. It also makes the county vulnerable if there were special emergency circumstances. I ask the board to consider other taxes or enforcing the taxes we already have. Look at taxes that the state allows counties to impose and diversify the income. So far, it is clear that my singular voice is not enough to sway this board and the plans that have been set in motion. Please stay informed. Please understand that the money that has been proposed to be spent, I am sure this has brought light to the money and has to come from somewhere. In Nelson, the majority of the money comes from property owners, which seems quite unfair. One citizen came to me and said it was not up to me to save Nelson County by taking from the property owners, and I agree, but you all need to know and need to stay aware of the spending that is proposed in the next few years. Thank you.
Comment? Mr. Reed?
Yes, I made the motion that we increase the real estate tax by a penny. And I stand by that. The reason that I did this was not because we had a very clear budget with very clear revenues and very clear expenses. It was done in response to a over $1 million change in the amount of money that we receive from the state. It would not make sense to make a large increase in the tax rate to try to make that up, clearly. The smallest amount that we could do would be to try to make up a quarter of that, in my thinking. So I suggested a penny increase in that. I think anyone who thinks that it is other than a modest increase, I think would be mistaken. And yes, if our fortunes glow in the following years, we will create a tax rate that will match that budget. But the county and the schools have both set a goal, which is to give a 3% cost increase to their employees. And I don't see how that could be possible without some increase in revenues to do it. And the reason is that up until this point, as has been said, the board has set itself on a goal to have enough debt service and reserves to be able to do the things that we have projected we need and would like to do. While I'm not opposed to that plan, it's something that we've been building on as long as I've been sitting on the board. It is true that if we should decide that that is not a priority of the board, then revenues would be available that could go to pay some of the expenses which we are committed to doing. And those are services to our sheriff's department, to our fire and rescue department, to the schools, and to the employees of the county and the school. The largest employer in this county, the body that is responsible for the greatest number of workers in this county, is the county. It's our administration and our schools. And when you put that together, an investment back into the community, almost 80% of the expenses in schools go directly into people's pockets, with all the expenses that go along with it. But yes, it is dedicated to salaries. So if I was building a future for Nelson County, I would build a future where the people who are living and working in the county have more means. And the largest employer in the county being the county, it makes sense to me that we do everything we can to keep those people with a cost of living increase that will allow them to better than survive. And that's the most important thing for me. There are other things that we can do, granted. We have proposals, as Ms. Ligon, Dr. Ligon set out, and that's pretty accurate. But one of the things that the debt service does is it gives us an opportunity to borrow money if we choose to, and invest money if we choose to. And the county has properties that could be invested in for the benefit of the county. And perhaps, you know, the needs of the county are clearly connected to housing and employment. And putting money into those things are things that the county has the ability to do. As long as I've been sitting on this board, I haven't seen a desire of any developer to invest significantly in this county. And I don't hold that against them personally or professionally or any of those things. It's just the reality. Our county's getting older, and unfortunately, the number of students and families that our schools serve is a higher level of English as a second language, families below the poverty level than we've ever had. And that's a reality in the county. So to try to create something that's a future for them, if the county has the ability and the desire to do those things, it can do it. And it can do it through our reserve and our debt service. Now, like I say, the board at this point has been pretty much set on a course to do that. Just today, we got some information that there is some more money available that we didn't know through that debt service, so we might be able to get a little bit more of that. It's similar in the amount to what the tax increase would be, not quite that much, but it is some, and it would get us on the way there. But, you know, I'm a lifelong educator. I go to as many school board meetings as I can. I talk to the school board members a lot, and I know a lot of teachers and a few students there in the school. And I feel for their plight, and I know that investing money in the children of the county is a real investment. So, that's my perspective on this. I'm going to continue to try to do that, but if this tax increase doesn't happen, I'm not going to be terribly upset. But what I'm going to do is try to take a look at the budget before we sign off on it and get the money that we need to be able to do the things we need to for the schools. It can be done, and I'm willing to work to do it. But I would hope that the people of Nelson County would share in that burden.
Is that it? Very good. Thank you. Mr. Harvey, any comment?
Yeah, I got a lot of comment.
Turn your mic on.
The toughest budget that we have to deal with from our end is the school budget. And that is something that I am very strong about, making sure that we fund our schools at the level that we need to. My group come up, we were privileged to have the funding there, and I think we deserve to give these kids coming up today that same type of support. Wasn't ready, but go ahead, Jesse, and I'll come back.
You got it? No, I'm good. You go ahead.
You know, as we sit here, I spent a few nights ago over in Schuyler, and it's a place where my family's originated, spent a lot of time, had a lot of careers began there back in the early 1900s, and that's a piece of history that I really cherish. I had a couple conversations, and one was with someone who was retired, and they brought up the burden of not only what they were experiencing with water and sewer costs, but also realizing what it means when taxes go up. And what, in this community, taxes are not equal to all people. if you've realized in the last couple of years that your home value went up 50%, that's a tax increase. And that's a real thing. There are some parts of this community that didn't see that jump. They saw 20%, they saw 15%, they saw 10%. And that person who saw that 40, 50% jump, you know, I had explained, I said, you know, this is tough, this is hard. This isn't that 20-year cycle you were thinking. It was like all of a sudden, bam, when COVID hit and the world kind of changed. We, as a board, need to be, of course, being as fiscally responsible as we can and looking to the future and how we can support jobs to come to this community that can support not only, you know, just their home, but to support their families. You know, people are having to make the decisions of if they want to move back to Nelson County, of how soon will they be able to start their family. And that's a sad story that I've got to see with a lot of my friends growing up and those who are still trying to move here. Looking into the future, we need to start asking ourselves the hard question of how it is that we can take care of those who are struggling the most. And of course, we got another vote right after this about how much we're looking at doing for relief. And I hope this board will look at increasing that number, that percentage. But today, I believe the best decision this board can make is to bring this rate back down to 65 cents. And with that, I will make a motion, Mr. Chairman, for Resolution R 2024-32 in the two blank areas for real property tax and mobile home tax to 65 cents.
I'll second
So we have a motion and a second to maintain the tax rate at the current level of 65 cents for real property, tangible personal property, $2.79, machinery and tools tax, $1.25, and mobile home tax remaining at 65 cents. Do we have any discussion?
Yeah, there should be a whole lot.
Okay, you're up.
You're telling me this is the rate that we paid last year? We've got to maintain and, you know, keep our finances for the county.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'll call the question.
You have any comments? Anybody? Dr. Ligon? Mr. Reed? No comment? You have anything else?
Well, there should be comments. I mean,
Well, we can't make them speak, so do you have anything else? He's called the question. We have a motion and a second. We're going to call for a vote here in a second.
we're near ready to vote.
I think we are.
For clarity, if we don't take on the debt service and we tread lightly on the school budget, I agree, our budget is okay. I don't think, I believe they will do take on the debt service that they proposed. But I have been informed by many people that the public would prefer a reactive tax increase instead of a preemptive watch the ship sink situation. So it just is what it is. If we're willing to discuss the school budget and be cognizant in spending the money correctly on more than just two projects, I'm game to keep it the way it is.
All right, we have, the public comment section is over. We have a motion and a second to maintain the tax rate at 65 cents for real property and mobile home tax. Do we have any other discussion? Hearing none?
What?
Well,
No, I'm not.
okay, well, I'm asking.
I don't know where you're coming, we're supposed to be fiscally responsible to the county and all of this, and I don't see how you can do that with your proposal. Now, you've been over here long enough to know that, in order to fund our schools and things the way they should be funded, it's periodically time that you've got to raise taxes. And I'm not someone for raising taxes, but you've got responsibilities that you have got to provide. You've got to be able to make sure that our kids are well educated. It's just a long, sad story, but, you know, we can't balance it on the kids.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
roll call.
Any other comment?
What is
Hearing
it-
none.
Hold on, like, what is his motion?
My motion is to leave the taxes the same as they were in this prior tax year, this current tax year, and not increase them by 1 penny for real estate and mobile home tax. That was what we were here for, was an increase. My motion is to leave it where it was. So if you disagree with me, you can vote no. If you agree with me, you can vote yes. It's kind of where we're sitting at. And we've already gone through this discussion a couple times, and we're going to a vote now.
Well, it's just, you know, are we gonna back our kids up or are we gonna move them forward? And that's what the whole thing's about.
All right, we'll have a roll call vote. Amanda?
Mr. Reed?
No.
Dr. Liggett?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
No,
Mr. Palmer?
Yes. All right, so the motion passes. So now, do we need to vote on the resolution, or was that, because it's listed two different ways on the,
So you have that, and then you have the personal property tax relief. That's a separate.
that's coming up second.
Wait, we're gonna talk about that right now.
Yeah, but I'm finishing up this one first. I just need a point of order. Do we have to say the resolution R 2024-32?
My motion kind of wrapped that in there.
What-
Yeah, that's how my.
So that's,
I think your
that wrapped
motion
it up.
referenced
Okay.
the resolution.
Yes.
Yes.
So I think we're okay.
And the tax rates. I just wanted to make sure we didn't need a second vote on it
Right.
for formality. Okay, next, we are moving on to item 5, establishment of the 2024 personal property tax relief, R 2024-33.
Just to be clear, this is not a public hearing. This is just another responsibility the board has with regards to personal property tax. So pursuant to State Code 58.1, 3524, for tax year 2006 and thereafter, localities will be reimbursed by the state for providing the required tangible personal property tax relief as set forth in this code section. In 2006, $950 million in tax relief was divvied up between the counties, cities, and towns in the Commonwealth based upon their pro rata share of their actual payments for tax year 2005 as compared to the actual payments to all counties, cities, and towns in 2005. It was also established that this amount would be the same for each subsequent tax year. At that time, the annual amount of tangible personal property tax relief provided to Nelson County by the state was determined to be $1,708,030. State code mandates that a tax relief rate for qualifying vehicles be annually established in order to receive this tax relief reimbursement from the state. So therefore, pursuant to this code section, the resolution you have before you, R 2024-33, establishes the percentage reduction in the rate used for distribution of the county's personal property tax relief of the 1.7 million. And this is for qualifying vehicles under the statute, which I will discuss here in just a moment. The 2023 tax year percentage relief was set at 39%. The county's financial system calculates this percentage given the amount of current tax revenue expected and the qualifying vehicles as categorized by the Commissioner of Revenue within the system. At the beginning of the year 2023, a personal property tax relief percentage of 39% distributed approximately 1.5 million of the 1.7 in tax relief that the county received from the state, which left $173,283 for distribution throughout the fiscal year. So this code section identifies which vehicles qualify for relief. So qualified vehicles with an assessed value of $1,000 or less will be eligible for 100% tax relief. Qualified vehicles with an assessed value of $1,001 to $20,000 will be eligible for, this year it's 39% tax relief. Qualified vehicles with an assessed value of $20,001 or more shall be eligible to receive, this year it's 39% tax relief, only on the first $20,000 of assessed value. All other vehicles which do not meet the definition of qualifying, which are business use vehicles, farm use vehicles, and motor homes, will not be eligible for any form of relief under this program. So here we have a table that shows how the tax relief would be distributed at varying percentages of the tax relief. Each 1% increase distributes about $38,417. The board wanted to look at different rates in trying to decide which rate to set. As you can see, at 39%, it distributes about 1.5 million. We would have $173,283 for any adjustments throughout the tax year. As it goes down, you can get up to 43% before you actually start distributing more than what the state provides. So at 44%, we would distribute $1,726,832, which would require 18,802 local dollars. At 47%, we would distribute about $1.8 million, which would require local funding of $134,053. And then at 50%, we would distribute $1.9 million for a local cost of $249,304. So next steps with regards to this would be to obtain any input from staff if you so desire. Actions to consider, since you did set the tax rates, we would recommend that you approve Resolution 2024-33 that would officially set the 2024 percentage PPTRA relief for the Commissioner of Revenue to use when generating the 2024 property book. You could defer action on this as the Commissioner doesn't need all of the information until April 30th, so that is an option. Should the board approve a percentage of relief that requires local funding, staff direction will be needed on the source of those funds within the budget. I can go back to that if that's helped.
How often is there an adjustment?
We get adjustments throughout the year as people buy and sell different vehicles. So then it distributes it as those changes are made.
Question. So earlier today, as Mr. Reed had pointed out, staff had been able to potentially locate a couple $100,000 that originally this board was not counting on. if there's a better time to utilize that funds that we weren't necessarily counting on, it's giving it back to the taxpayer and giving them more relief. So whether it's 47% or 50%, that's where I'm sitting at right now.
Where are you sitting? I didn't hear you.
The $200,000 that we found earlier today.
No, I heard that part.
He said whether it's 47 or
47 or
50, he doesn't know the number, but
See what the flavor of the board is.
I'm gonna wait. Dr. Ligon, you have anything? Ernie?
Yeah, certainly not in favor of,
Well, it depends, you have a
Yeah.
20% or
Yeah.
20,000.
yeah. So it was set at 39 last year. And it could be set at 43 this year. And we would not have to, the county would not lose any funds in terms of doing that. That makes perfect sense to me because they're getting a higher, the citizens are getting a higher amount of tax relief and the counties are not losing any revenue. I think it's a no-brainer, but I could be wrong.
So earlier this year, I made a proposal for volunteer first responders that we double the tax relief for their vehicles. And because it hadn't been adjusted since '95, I think. And it passed, and I was pleased to see that. One thing I would like to see, we're focusing on the percentage here, but one thing I'm hearing from a lot of residents is as the NADA book values are increasing on vehicles, and there's a lot of concern about where's that number coming from, and my used vehicle is worth more, and all this. I think we need to not only focus on the percentage. I would like to see us look at the $20,000 figure, because the value of vehicles is going up. When was the last time we evaluated that number?
So the $20,000 threshold here is prescribed by the state.
So that's a
code.
state
We can't
number.
change
We can't change that.
Unless
Okay.
the state changes it.
State needs to change that. Okay, I got you. I agree with Mr. Reed for sure. At a minimum, 43% tax relief. On the flip side of that, we just voted down a real estate tax increase. I don't think it would be, I don't feel comfortable lowering this tax relief at the same, I think we should kind of wash on both of them. And going up to 43% would still be a wash from a budget standpoint while providing additional tax relief to the citizens. So I would support 43%. Dr. Ligon?
I agree with that.
Are we unanimous
No.
at this
I'm
point?
gonna-
Oh, you're high, oh, I got you, yeah.
Again, we just found a couple $100,000 today.
Well, we've already spent it.
You already
I mean,
spent it.
seriously, it's, we've already spent it.
But the reality is, as we look into the future, taxpayers deserve this help. 200 grand, as we just mentioned, 300 grand. We have a lump sum of cash that's sitting in our coffers that we can utilize for whatever this expense is. I would stand by 47%, 50%. If this board chooses to make a motion for 43%, I still commend this board for at least bringing it up to there, but let's look after the taxpayer. But I'm not gonna make any motions, I'll wait for y'all's.
Any comment?
What's the
Any-
motion?
No one's made a motion.
No, not yet. We don't have a motion on the
Use
floor.
the,
I don't know what mine is, so I can't make it because I don't have the damn number.
here.
I move that for resolution R 2024-33, that we up the percent to 43%. Is there anything else I need to say?
That's it.
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to increase the tax relief to 43%. Any discussion?
I'm not sure you you're funding the budget.
Well, this is about tax relief. The budget conversation, we'll pick that back up on the 18th, when we get back together. But we've done the budget funding in of it. This is for tax relief, for personal property. Going from 39% to 43% has zero impact on the budget. So we get to 44% is where it has an impact. So the motion now is for 43% tax relief. Any other comments? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Amanda?
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Dr. Lady?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
No.
Mr. Parker?
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you all for that. Thank you, Candy.
Thank you.
All right, next we have item 6, other business as presented. Virginia Opioid Abatement Authority, joint application for cooperative projects.
It's taxes.
Excuse me?
You just raise taxes.
No.
Yeah, you do.
You voted to raise taxes. Are you awake? Thank you all for coming. If you could, keep it down while we're finishing up the meeting, or carry the conversations out into the hall, please. Thank you. Ms. McGarry?
This application has been discussed briefly amongst kind of our TJPDC localities. And I thought it wasn't going to move forward, but then I got an email either yesterday or today saying that the deadline for this application had been extended to May 1st.
Excuse me. Can you all please move the conversations out into the hall while we finish up the meeting? Thank you. Sorry, Ms. McGarry.
Okay. So, of course, we just had our Tuesday meeting, and so I wasn't able to discuss it with you then. So I'm bringing it to you today because the folks putting in the application, which is OAR, would like to do so before we potentially work to meet again. So this application would be to the Virginia Opioid Abatement Authority. That's where several localities can cooperate on an application to get funds from the state's pot of opioid abatement money. So this application would provide for OAR hiring regional specialty docket, which means like drug court related administrator, a peer recovery support team manager, and 3 peer recovery support specialists. So they think these new positions would greatly enhance OR's ability to deliver accessible quality services to individuals who have been most adversely affected by the opioid crisis. There is no local match required. They have requested $5,000 from each participating locality, which includes Albemarle, Charlottesville City, Fluvanna County, potentially Nelson County, Orange County, and Madison County. A local match simply just strengthens the application, and it gets a better score from the state. The $5,000 could come from our opioid abatement funds that we get directly for opioid mitigation, which we have been using to support the county's drug court. The funds we have budgeted of these that are for opioid abatement in the FY25 budget are $47,699. And again, we would not be required to provide this match, but we simply could if you all chose to do so. So this grant, I think, is a 5-year grant, and again, is thought to provide good outcomes for those who are going through the drug court, and will provide peer, what they call peer recovery support specialists that they could meet with outside of drug court to try to keep them on the right track and not recidivate.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So basically, the ask is, do we want to reallocate $5,000 of the fund to this?
Yes, and that's
Yes.
not required. Like I said, it was just it's optional, would strengthen the application, but mainly they just want to know, do we want to participate?
I would think.
So-
It gives an opportunity for greater return, and it's zero impact on the budget other than reallocating these funds. What type of impact would this have on the usage of that $47,699? Would any,
I think it's pretty minimal. We're
Yeah.
going to be getting more funds every year because it's a multi-year distribution from these lawsuits. Also, Charlottesville City has volunteered to be the fiscal agent, so literally, we wouldn't have any responsibility at all, other than to join the group.
Moving it
Their
here.
OAR is gonna monitor everything, the whole grants. They're gonna take care of hiring the peers. There's no added burden to the county to participate.
Okay.
So if you think favorably upon the application and us participating, I would ask that if you make a motion doing so, just also please authorize myself to sign any related documents for the grant.
Mr. Chair, I'm prepared to make a motion to approve this application and allow staff to do what they need to do to get it going.
very good. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call vote.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Dr. Leahy?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
Thank you.
Very good.
To clarify, does this include the $5,000 contribution?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep, thank you.
We have to continue this meeting to
Any other business?
No, sir.
And we will be continuing
yes,
till our next budget work session.
April the 18th at
Thank
2
you.
p.m.
Continue, I'll entertain a motion that we continue this meeting until our budget work session, April 18th at 2 p.m.
So moved.
We need a second.
Just making sure.
Just
I'll second.
You going?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.